The Best of Living in Iowa is funded in part by the Gilchrist Foundation. Founded by Jocelyn Gilchrist, furthering the philanthropic interests of the Gilchrist family in wildlife and conservation, the arts and public broadcasting, and disaster relief.
Funding for this program was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation. Generations of families and friends who feel passionate about the programs they watch on Iowa Public Television.
Hello, this is Morgan Halgren. For 16 seasons, Living in Iowa told the tale of what it means to be uniquely Iowan. Tonight, we honor that spirit by bringing you another glimpse into our rich heritage with a few stories from our archives. In this episode of The Best of Living in Iowa, we'll reflect on the view from 70 with Iowa City photographer Ina Lowenberg. Visit an art studio that preserves, restores, and creates stained glass, and discover how the Gateway Dance Theater Company came to be.
First up is Ina Lowenberg, an Iowa City photographer who, when she reached the age of 70, took an even longer look back. Lowenberg's latest photographic project, The View from 70, weaves together portraits and life stories into a book that is a multi-threaded tapestry of women's lives.
I had just finished doing a documentary project and was thinking of doing something documentary again, but combining it with portraiture, which I like to do. And this funny, subversive thought came to me: what do women my age look like now? And I thought they would be fun to photograph. But then I immediately thought, you need to know something about their lives. The photographs wouldn't be enough.
What developed from photographer Ina Lowenberg's curiosity was a book. A collection of photographs and life stories of 42 women, including herself, born in the year of her birth, 1931.
As you get to be an older person, particularly an older woman, you notice how invisible you become as you walk along the street. People just don't notice you. And I think that what this project, I hope, has done is to give visibility to some older women.
The groundwork for The View from 70, Recollections and Reflections, was laid with a few strategically placed notices in newsletters and newspapers from parts of the world that are meaningful in Ina's life: New York, Great Britain, Germany, Singapore, and the place she has called home for more than 30 years, Iowa. She began to get responses.
I accepted them on a first-come, first-served basis, and then when I thought I can't do more than, the 15 Iowa women, that was easy enough, but 20 New York women who were quite scattered, and the European women, I just felt this was large enough, and that was right. So it's just chancy in a way, and yet it amazes me how varied, how interesting all those lives are.
Varied lives, to be sure, but lives that were nevertheless all written in the same difficult chapters of world history. Born in the midst of the Great Depression, they lived through World War II, the Korean and Vietnam Wars, and witnessed the civil rights and women's movements. Phoebe was born in Vienna, Austria, and sent to London as a child to escape the Nazis. She grew up to become a chemist, but her career was frustrating due to the discrimination she felt in various part-time jobs. Lorene was born in a log cabin on the Arkansas River and became part of a blended family that included 19 children. For many years, they lived from place to place along the Missouri River in a houseboat her father had built.
It was a hard time of life, really, at that, because we were a very poor family and a lot of children. And living the way we did, it probably affected my whole life because of it.
Some of the women in Ina's book had great successes, and some had huge disappointments and deprivations. Yet all of the women adapted and made it through.
And when you think of some of those stories and the hard luck and the hard times that some women went through, those were nevertheless women who wanted to tell somebody about their lives.
After corresponding often by email and sometimes visiting on the phone, Ina began traveling to meet her recruits.
So the door would open and there'd be this mutual surprise. Oh, that's what you look like and that's what you look like. And then I would come in and be uneasily looking around to see where I could photograph the woman. And so I'd be looking around for that, but we always talked first. And by the time we left, after a couple of hours together, we were ready to be in touch again.
By the time the book was published, Ina felt a strong bond with each of the members of this accidentally selected group of women. But the women themselves had not yet met each other. So Ina began organizing events like the birth year party we attended at an Amana restaurant near Williamsburg, a combination reunion and book signing social primarily for the Iowa women in the book.
Oh, hi, Maureen. I just read about you again last night. Oh, yeah.
But I don't know where you're at.
I'm on page 98.
This is Maureen.
Sign 9.
And her sign in Cedar Ave.
Oh, that's right. Of course, you met each other. Oh, come on. I want to introduce you to Marlene, Jan.
She's 30.
Hi,
Jeanette. That's right. Jeanette.
Nice to
How did
meet
you
you.
know
I'm
that?
so glad that you came.
Yeah, because Jeanette is also Iowa City.
Oh, really?
And this is Mary, who's with you. And Heidi. This is Jan. Heidi.
Nice to meet you.
The gathering also made real the sense of community that Ina had felt all along.
I just want to say welcome. I really, when I was doing this book, I dreamt of everybody being together, and we're the greatest number who've been together in one room since the book came out, and it's a thrill for me, and I think you enjoy meeting each other as I enjoy seeing you once more.
Like many in attendance, Jeanette felt a definite connection with the other women.
Having been born in 31, it's just, that is enough said. You look at them and you think, yes, they have the same wrinkles on their faces. Their expressions tell the same age. I realize we've all been through different ups and downs, but they're just little gifts that have been given to us, and it's how we accept them.
Hazel discovered an unexpected gift as a result of having participated in the project.
My children all have read it, and actually they have found things out about me that they didn't know, and I didn't even realize that I hadn't told them, that I hadn't talked about.
Patricia was grateful for the chance to tell her story. She thinks younger generations might gain an appreciation for their good fortune if they read accounts of her generation's reality.
And we walked every place, get to school and your legs are beet red because they're so cold in the wintertime. And kids just have it a little too easy now, I think. They don't really have to learn how to cope with things.
Ina expands on that idea.
I mean, now I feel a lot of sympathy for young people who are growing up having had things rather easy and comfortable in their youth and facing perhaps difficult times ahead. And with us, it was just the opposite. Things got better, but they started out with difficulties.
Ina's original question about how women her age look has been answered, and her book reflects the results. In addition, the combination of present-day portraits, life stories, and snapshots from these women's youth speaks to the curiosity we all share about how our lives may evolve.
Well, I think some of these women are very beautiful at 70. And these women show that women can be active, alert, enthusiastic, and old. So what is the view from 70? I don't know. It's that there's been a lot of change in our lives. There are many things that surprise us when we see where we've come and where we started. And I think that's true of many of the lives, many surprises.
I guess I would just like you to imagine that you're talking to someone and you have this picture of the present day and you have the young picture. What would you want people to think as they're looking at these two pictures?
I would want them to think that life doesn't stop at 18 and that some of the most interesting things happen later and continue happening. Yeah.
Architects in the Middle Ages understood the power of a beautiful place. The whole idea behind Gothic cathedrals was to inspire a connection with the divine through high ceilings and breathtaking windows. The Fairfield artist you're about to meet makes it transparent that the idea is still a good one.
The first painting I made in Iowa was so drastically different from anything I had ever done, and I was quite embarrassed by it. And it's just taken me a while to be accustomed to this new imagery, because it's rather innocent and charming. And before, what I was doing was heavy and cool and and it's just, it was quite a change.
We first introduced you to Ron Bovard, an artist that was new to Iowa, almost 10 years ago. Since then, Ron's art studio has gone through some incredible growth. Last year, it grew by 40%, which is the kind of growth that would put most stock portfolios to shame.
Other years we've grown, I think our highest growth rate was 87%, and it was close to that for several years in a row. But you have to understand, right now we're a much larger company than we were a number of years ago. So 40% growth is a large growth because we're a good-sized operation now.
Ron told us that in 9 years, his business has increased 1,600%. While it might seem strange to compare an art studio to a business, Bovard Studio has grown from just Ron to a studio that now employs 30 people.
There's about 5,000 storefronts across the United States, but only a handful, 10 or 15, do what we do.
What Ron does has changed right along with the size of his studio. 10 years ago, Ron described himself as a contemporary artist, primarily creating rather whimsical images, but doing some work in stained glass. Today, the art is all stained glass and is very traditional.
It goes back about 1,000 years at least. The oldest surviving painted glass is from around 900 AD, and it's in a church in Germany, in Augsburg. But of course, that's the oldest surviving, which means that there was probably went on some time before that. And we basically used the same techniques and the same types of paint as they did back then.
According to Ron, a stained glass window will last forever unless it's broken. And 60% of the work done at Bovard Studios is actually restoring stained glass. That process begins by making a pattern of the window, then separating the glass, saving as much of the original glass as possible.
Something like this we could probably save and just run a thin strip of lead to here. But if it's more than one hairline, if it's like a spider fracture or something like that, then it's easier just to have a new piece painted. So, but this one was just shattered, so we'll have to do a new one there. But we try to save as much of the old glass as possible.
If a piece of glass needs to be replaced, a new piece is cut using the pattern made earlier. It's then painted with pigments that contain metal oxides that actually stain the glass when exposed to high temperatures in a kiln.
We look at the piece that we're copying and decide how it was built and painted and try to do the same thing over again.
Each time a new color or pigment gets painted onto the glass, it gets fired in the kiln. When it's finished, those colors won't rub off or fade because they're actually fused into the glass, which is then ready for the next step in the process, reassembling the window.
There's a lot to learn about glass, a lot.
The techniques used in restoring stained glass are the same techniques that have been used for centuries. However, for the 40% of Ron's business that involves designing new stained glass windows, the Middle Ages and the computer age come together.
Yeah, we used to do it all by hand. We used to do all the designs in watercolor and all the draft the patterns by hand, with a pencil and drafting tools and so forth. And now that we've got technology, I do it all on the computer, so it makes a lot of things easier, especially when the clients have some changes that they want.
The actual process of making a new stained glass window is the same that's used in restoring one. This particular window is one of 3 panels that will be going to Dallas to be installed in a mausoleum.
Sometimes we get really old windows that are really nice to work on, and I mean, you're working with a piece of history that you're restoring. And then this one is, in particular, real special. This is a memorial to a woman who's dying, and she has 3 young children that are depicted in this window. And so there's a definite feeling of giving somebody a little hope in this. She could die any time.
The last step in either the creation or restoration of a stained glass window is the installation. Crews have traveled as far east as New York, as far west as Hawaii, as far north as Alaska, and as far south as Florida.
We basically cover the whole United States. There are areas that we haven't done stained glass in, but we do about 100 projects a year in churches mostly, with some courthouses and libraries and universities. What we get out of building the stained glass windows is the knowledge that we're contributing to someone's heritage that's going to go on for many generations. It's just a great deal of joy and satisfaction letting your art and your talent make this contribution to our clients.
Many of us have been introduced to unfamiliar cultures by first observing their native dances. Des Moines resident Penny Ferguson has built a fulfilling life around that idea, and her hope is that awareness and appreciation of different cultures will eventually lead to respect for them.
It could make you very tipsy, make you feel like a gypsy.
At this dance workshop, the instructor seems to be having as much fun as the 5- and 6-year-old students.
They give me energy. When I see them get excited and really interested in doing this, I'm using the arts and dance to just get the feeling of, respect each other.
Respecting one another and appreciating other cultures is the mission of Gateway Dance Theater, a nonprofit multicultural dance company. Penny Ferguson and her late husband Lee formed the organization in 1972, and Penny is still moving to the rhythms of the world with a mix of modern jazz, African, Latin, Asian, and Indian music.
When we dance, we really take natural movements and just stylize them and make them bigger. A lot of the movements that we do in classical Indian dance, you do it in ballet, you do it in African dance, they're all similar, and they all come because you observe somebody moving a certain way. Maybe that's why I like dance, and also it combines music.
Part of this lesson includes Indian classical dance, a form that Penny studied as a child in her native India. She grew up with an awareness of other cultures, as demonstrated by this picture of her in traditional Japanese attire. Growing up during the transition from British rule to Indian independence also made Penny aware of cultural differences.
Indian dance was looked down upon, and especially even if you were Christian, they thought it was pagan, And I'm very fortunate that my parents didn't feel that way. And I never thought I was that passionate about dance.
Following in her big sister's dance steps, Penny says she eventually took it quite seriously and continued dancing in college, where she majored in chemistry and biology.
And I did not want to be a physician. My grandmother was a physician, and I adored her, but I didn't want to be that committed. I wanted to dance. So that's why I chose pharmacy.
Penny had every intention of being among the generation that built an independent India. But while in college, she worked as a tour guide and met a couple from Des Moines, Iowa. That connection would lead to a scholarship to Drake University. When Penny got on the boat to come to America, she had no idea that Iowa would become her new permanent home.
Well, nobody told me I'd fall in love. My roommates kept asking me, well, what if happens if you meet somebody here? And I said, I could never, ever marry an American. That's out of the question. Well, I met Lee. And a year after I came here, actually.
Lee Ferguson shared Penny's interests in music and theater and encouraged her to keep dancing. After graduating from Drake University's College of Pharmacy, Penny performed a lead role in an off-Broadway production called Shakuntala, a traditional Indian drama. That experience may have inspired her to continue dancing, but she gives her late husband Lee most of the credit for the creation of the Gateway Dance Theater.
There's no way I would have done Gateway Dance Theater. It was him.
In the beginning, funding was scarce, and classes were held in churches and schools. Today, a small studio in Des Moines is home to the company, which holds weekly classes and hosts professional dancers from other countries, like Daniel Rojo from Mexico. In 1972, with civil rights a burning issue, the founders of Gateway Dance Theater wanted to do something positive to promote intercultural awareness.
Why we formed the dance company was we used to have the international fiesta, and if they needed a dancer, I would be the Mexican dancer, I'd be the Filipino dancer. And then one lady said to me, you know, it's too bad we can't use you in the Scandinavian dances. And I thought, well, why not? You know, it never occurred to me, you know, because again, you know, people are trying to stereotype you as to what you should be like and look like.
Widening experiences for herself and her students has led to yearly week-long summer workshops taught by diverse professional instructors.
1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3.
To show off what they've learned, workshop participants put on a show.
Right, left, again, right, left.
One of Penny's most recent productions was several years in the making. In December of 2004, she produced a multicultural musical based on a modern version of the Nativity story. Narrators tell the story with original music and dance choreography from many cultures.
I think just seeing all the different faces there together, I just thought that that was great. You know, in this country we could do that. And we should share our richness with each other. I was hoping for us to have a cultural village where people have a spot that they can come in.
Gateway Dance Theater celebrates diversity by blending dance styles. It was a gate that was opened for Penny years ago in India.
When I was in India, you stayed in your classical style, and you didn't do the other style. And I remember going to a ballet premiere where they mixed all the different styles together. And I thought that was fantastic. And I wanted to be part of that Indian National Theater. That was my dream. And
although she never made it to the National Theater, her Iowa dream of fusing the many rhythms of the world has kept her dancing.
Went into pharmacy thinking you quit being a dancer when you're 30 years old. It seemed like it was an old age then. Here I retired from pharmacy and I'm still dancing.
The Best of Living in Iowa is funded in part by the Gilchrist Foundation. Founded by Jocelyn Gilchrist, furthering the philanthropic interests of the Gilchrist family in wildlife and conservation, the arts and public broadcasting, and disaster relief.
Funding for this program was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation. Generations of families and friends who feel passionate about the programs they watch on Iowa Public Television.